Yeah, so hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar of 4D20R6. So here is a quick overview of what we will be exploring today. So we will kick things off by uncovering what's new for developers as we explore the latest enhancements to the 4D language. Next, we will dive into a very interesting ORDA feature that is sure to enhance your UIs. And following that, we will highlight significant user interface feature that will improve how you interact with your forms and subforms. And then we will shift our focus to 4D Write Pro and the new capabilities it brings. And finally, we will wrap up with a look at Qodly Studio for 4D. So during this presentation, we will be running demos to showcase how these features work in practice, giving you a clear view of their functionality and potential. So before we get started, I want to encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation via the Q&A box of Zoom. And because we are here actually to guide you and help you make the most out of this feature release. So without further ado, let's jump into the first segment. And to you, Mathieu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Intissar. Thank all of you for being here today. And let's start with a compatibility note. So for the current macOS Sequoia release, I'm happy to confirm that 4D 20.5 and 4D 20R6 are fully certified for compatibility. This ensures that all users upgrading to Sequoia can continue working smoothly with 4D. On the Windows side, both 4D 20.5 and 4D 20R6 are certified on the latest versions of Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server. This guarantees stability and full support across desktop and server environments. So here, as usual, you get a little link on our blog to check that out. But let's continue. Let's continue with Singletons, which are now supported in 4D REST API. So as you might know, the Singleton design pattern creates a single instance of a class that is accessible throughout your application. This approach provides numerous benefits, including serving as a host for inter-process values, acting as utility classes, providing a foundation for example, a factory design pattern, and many more things. In 4D 20R6, so we've taken singletons to a next level. They can now be called through 4D REST API, which make them usable out of the box in Qodly Studio for 4D. So when working in Qodly Studio for 4D, singletons are treated like data classes, which means you can expose and interact with their functions directly in the catalog. As you can see in those screenshots, we have a singleton user hub, which is available in the catalog alongside data classes. It has exposed functions such as getUserList that you can leverage in your Qodly pages. When configuring events, you can easily select exposed singleton functions to be triggered by events such as onSelect on this example here, where you can see the list of exposed singleton functions. Additionally, you can configure permissions to execute singletons and their exposed functions through the privileges screens in Qodly Studio. This dedicated role and privilege page allows you to manage access rights to your singletons functions, making them secure, in fact. So one last thing, while this was initially designed for Qodly Studio, you can also call these exposed singleton functions through classic REST calls. So if you want more detailed examples or hands-on demonstration, I highly recommend checking out our How Do I on Singletons, which is available through our blog. And let's go next. As many of you know, 4D developers often rely on third-party components, especially those available on GitHub. Now, with this new feature, you can directly integrate those components right within the dependency manager. What's even more exciting is that 4D can automatically retrieve components stored in repository releases. This means you can easily manage and update your dependencies straight from GitHub with just a few clicks. Simply include the component in your dependencies.json file, as you can see on this screen, and you can also mention or specify a specific version. You have more details on the blog, but let's see this feature in action with a demo. So in the previous webinar, we covered the dependencies manager, which allows developers to import their components from different parts of their machines by creating dependencies. In 4D20R6, we enhanced that capability, making it even more useful. Now you can import a component directly from GitHub without having to download and install it locally on your machine. So let's take a look at the current components installed on this database. These are the components, especially the last one, the info report component. Many of you already know it. When we provide tech support, we often ask customers to provide system information so we can assess any issue. Info report is made for that. You can see here the component methods. Now let's take a look at how we currently install this component. So in the sources folder, we open up the dependencies file. Currently, we are referencing a file on the disk at the same level as the project folder. Let's check it. It's this component, the version 4 for the info report. So let's go ahead and replace this component with the one we can download from 4D's GitHub repository. First, I show you the GitHub page. This is where we find all the component and public projects we share with you. And let's scroll down and find the info report component. Okay, it's here. It's listed as public. We'll go inside. And once here, you can see the project files, some documentation. But on the right side, the important part is the releases here. You can see that there are multiple releases available, but for the sake of this demo, we'll use the latest version. So going back to the dependencies file, we need to reference this specific component. So in our case, the component name is for the info report that I get from there. So we'll remove the previous reference to version 4 and specify that we are getting the component from GitHub. Like that. Let's specify its location. Okay. And now let's add an attribute for the version. So here you can simply put star to import the latest version of the component. Okay, let's save this file and close it. And now let's check what the dependency manager is telling us. Oops, here. Because we made changes, it's no longer detecting where the component is coming from. So we need to restart the application to fix that. And after relaunching 4D, you can see that there is no longer missing component. And the icon has changed. Now we see the GitHub icon for this component. So we can now start using the features the component offers. We confirm that by checking here that we have a list of methods for this component. So that's it for this. I will share. Go back here. Yes, this one. That's all for this demo. Let's move to the next feature. Warnings are essential for catching potential code issues, sorry. And now you can tailor them to suit your project's needs. With 4D20R6, you can globally define which warnings appear in the compiler and code editors, helping you focus on the most important alerts. A new tab has been added to the compiler page of the project structure settings dialog box. This tab, as you can see in the screen, contains a list of all available warnings. Only warnings checked in the list will be generated in the compiler dialog and in the code editors, for the code editors or VS Code. But let's see this feature in action once again with a demo. So, second demo, it's very easy to detect and bypass warnings with this new feature that we have in the database settings. Let's have a look at some of the warnings developers might run into. To find that out very quickly, I can just go ahead and run the syntax checking. Here. So I can see that there are some errors, but I don't care about errors at this point. All I want to see is what are the warnings that I have in here. I have two warnings and I can manually hide or show those warnings. But let's imagine that these warnings won't be an issue, that I know exactly what I'm doing and I don't want 4G to keep notifying me about them. So in this case, I can override these settings by going directly into the database settings. I go to the appropriate tab, warnings, and there I see that each warning has an ID number, which is easily visible on the window. For example, 518.10. Let's suppose this warning does not bother me. I know it won't interfere with my application, so I decide to disable it. And I do the same for the warning 550.18 here. So the next time I run a syntax check, these warnings won't show up. Let's do that. That's it. So in the end, it's very, very simple to manage the display of warnings that I want to see or that I want to ignore during the development of my application. All right. We can go back to the presentation here. Let's go. Another great feature that enhances data security in your application, and I'm speaking of the privilege-based access control here. Remember that permissions are based on ORDA concepts and web sessions, more precisely on scalable web sessions. They cover all web processes, such as REST requests, requests received as a remote data store, and web processes like for the actions or for the tags. By setting up permissions, you deeply secure all accesses to a REST exposed for the server by ensuring that no data can be accessed if the adequate permission has not been granted first. So let's dive into a quick example of how privilege-based access works. In the roles.json file that you see on the left, privileges and roles are defined. Privileges can include other privileges, and privileges are assigned to roles. During authentication, you use the ds.authentify function to assign a role to the session. And later on, at any time, by calling the new getPrivileges function, you can easily retrieve a list of active privileges for the current user. So in our example, if the ds.authentify function assigned the editor role to the session, then the getPrivileges functions returns read-only and editor, as you can see in the screenshot, based on the definition of the privileges of the roles.json file. So this is very useful for debugging, to know which privileges has your session, but it can also be used to adapt your application's behavior according to the session privileges. So a little wrap up here. You can see on the left that we have a role called editor role. This role includes the privilege editor. The privilege editor also includes another privilege, which is read-only, for example. So we have two privileges and one role. The session.setPrivileges assign the editor role to the session on the right. And so when you call getPrivileges on this session, you just get both privileges because they're assigned to the role assigned to the session. That's it for the little wrap-up. Once again, our blog will give you much more detail on this interesting feature. Let's proceed, and don't forget, you have a Q&A window that you can use if you have any question, because we are approaching the question moment, you know. Let's talk about comparing objects and collection. In 4D 20R6, comparing object references is now easier than ever by using the equal and different operators. They allow you to determine if objects or collections share the same reference or are distinct. For instance, when you declare two objects and assign one to the other, they share the same reference. Using these comparison operators, you can confidently assert their equality or difference. This applies also to collections, where the same principle holds. So on screen, you have quick examples. I think it's easy to understand. On the blog, more details as usual. So let's continue with another new feature. It's the use of classes across components. This feature addresses a common challenge faced by component developers. Yeah, the need to access classes from other components within their projects. In previous versions of 4D, achieving this was possible at the cost of workarounds or modifications to the components themselves. With 4D 20R6, we have simplified this process by introducing namespace-based class access. To leverage this feature, you simply need to declare a namespace for your component. Once you do this, the classes within that component become accessible to other components loaded in the same host project. So for example, here on screen, if component 1 and component 2 are present in the same host project, component 2 will then be able to use classes from component 1 just by using component 1 namespace here. This is what you can see on screen. So in the end, your code gets much simpler and easier to share and to maintain. And it's a good thing because with the dependency manager, you can also handle your component much easily, yeah. So let's go. Let's go and talk about enhanced session storage access. Qodly 20R6 improves how you can manage session data, across various application types, be it client server, web, or mobile. With this new feature, you can now access to a specific session storage. Your users can maintain continuity and consistency across multiple sessions. Imagine easily pulling up the same customer record while switching between client server and web application. So say hello to this new command called session storage by ID. So we have a 4-minute YouTube video that demonstrates how this feature works. And the example shown in this video is also available in the blog post as in How Do I? But today, we will show you a dedicated demo about this feature. Oops. Oh, sorry, I have Chrome coming up. Okay, demo time.
For the next demonstration, I will open the same application on the server. Then I will connect to the server using 4G remote. Client server session has been available since 4G 20R5, the previous version. Before introducing the new functionality available in R6 regarding session, I will start with a reminder. Client sessions are based on the same web concept, the scalable session. This concept exists for the web, REST, and now for the client server connection or storage procedure. To illustrate my point, I will give you an example. In this method, the property execute on server is already defined, so I will execute this method with display the debugger on the server side. Here's the debugger. The command get process activity return 2 sessions, one for the storage procedure and another for the remote connection. Now I type in the session command. If I expand it, you can see the enumerated information. The session object has 4 properties: ID, info, storage, and username. The info property contains the same information returned in the session by the command get process activity. We now have this information within the session object for client session and storage procedure. The storage property allows you to keep information within the session object. Why can we do this? The possibilities are numerous. For example, by using the session and its storage, I could build a system to limit the data return based on the user job, or display interface element based on the type of user, or create unique preferences for each user connected to the server. In this project, I have a method to display the available functionality for the connected user. As a designer, I have access to all functionality. To control this, I create a JSON file that manages the available functionality based on the user. Using your file allows us to modify available functionalities without changing the application or the data file. This file contains an object with attributes for each type of user, allowing access to specific functionality based on the role. For instance, as a designer, I have access to everything. As an administrator, I have access to only 3 functionalities. Now, if I reconnect the same server as an accountant and check the functionality palette again, I see I have access to only 3 functionalities. Now, if I reconnect to the same server has a select person now, instead of 3, I have 4 options indicating that the information is correctly filtered based on the type of user. Here is how access retrieval works. Every time I open this functionality palette, I call a method to check the access get access. Then the load access method is called. In this method, I check if the access object is already loaded. If not, I load the file into a variable, pass the JSON information, and store it in the current session storage. I then return this information to the caller. Now I will show you how to use the same concept to create a simple messaging module in a client-server environment. We will use session storage to drop a new message for user. Let me show you what I mean. I will connect another user from a different machine. Now let's exchange message from one user to another. I execute open session list to get the list of the connected client. I want to write to sales. I type a message. And send it. Now let's check if the message was received by sales. Yes. I reply to this message. And check if the message is indeed received by accountant. And I reply again. How does it work? Now when I click send, a method is triggered that runs on the server. This is send message. Send message, yes, here. Let's look at the code. The method receives an object with the message text, the sender, and the recipient. Using the new command session storage by ID, I access the session storage. Once I have accessed it, I check if there is a collection name message. If not, I create one. Then I add the new message with all the information and send a notification to the client machine, where there is a code that queries the new message to display. This setup allows for seamless communication between users. I hope this detail will help you to better understand this feature, and I look forward to seeing how all of you leverage it in your project. Let's return to the presentation with Mathieu. Thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. And stay here for the questions, if we have any questions on that. Let's continue. And it's question time. Wow. So do we have questions about development features? I don't see any open question yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you have time. We are approximately at half of the presentation today, so you still have some time to ask question. But as we have a lot to show yet, we will continue straight to the rest of the presentation. So let's go. Let's move to ORDA. And to you, Intissar.
Thank you, Mathieu. So we have all encountered this challenge before. You design a beautiful interface displaying an entity selection for users. They drop entities, for example, to refine their selection, but empty spaces remain where the drop entities once were. So with this feature release, rebuilding the entity selection manually is no longer necessary. The new clean function takes care of this with just one line of code. okay, as you can see from the screen. For example, as you can see, when users delete entities from a selection, instead of leaving gaps, all you need to do is apply the clean function, and just like that, those empty spaces vanish, leaving a very clean interface. Okay, so do we have any questions regarding the developer segment or ORDA?
Not yet. People are shy today.
But it's okay, we can move forward in the presentation, but of course, feel free to ask questions at any time. Especially take advantage since we have the whole product team.
Yeah, connected today.
Yes.
Yeah.
The team behind all these features. Okay. So now let's talk about another improvement that enhances the user experience in forms and subforms. Okay. So in earlier versions, scrolling could be a little bit frustrating. Either the entire subform would scroll or the objects inside would, but not both as expected. So in 4020 R6, this has been made more intuitive. Now, when a user scrolls, if they are hovering over a scrollable object inside a subform, that object will scroll first. If it cannot scroll, the subform will take over, giving users a very smooth experience, as you can see from the video. The best part, there is nothing that you need to do from your side. It's obviously all automatic. Okay, maybe we can see this demo, yes, in action. So up until version 20 R5, as I said, managing scrolling using the mouse button or a trackpad could sometimes lead to freezes when a subform itself contains scrollable objects like text, lists, or images, okay? So let me show you what I mean. So here we have a simple form. This form is a parent form, okay? And it contains a subform object, which is a reference to this form. Okay. Now, in this form, there is more than just one subform in this one, okay? It also contains 3 additional subforms, each of which references this form, which is slightly larger than what you saw in the previous form, okay? So when you run this form, you can use your mouse, of course, with the scroll bar. You can actually scroll up and down, right? Okay. Now, what happens if you use your trackpad or the scroll wheel? Yes, you can scroll. Okay. Now, if you move your mouse outside of this area, you're shifting to the context of the parent form. That's fine. So here is the issue in the previous versions. The scrollable objects within the subform would scroll correctly, but once the base of these objects was reached, scrolling would stop entirely, when it should have continued to apply to the subform itself, leading to a sense of being stuck. So you had to move the cursor slightly outside of the scrollable area for the subform itself to scroll again. This usability issue, as we said, has been resolved in this feature release. So when a limit, top or bottom, or even left or right, is reached in scrollable object, the scroll action is automatically applied to its parent and moves up through parent levels if there are multiple levels of the subform. This behavior now is something everyone today considers natural, since it aligns with how web pages behave, for example. Okay, so let's move back to the presentation.
Okay, I need to find the button. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any questions? Yeah, we have a question, but it was in the chat, in the webinar chat. Yeah, okay, so Mathieu has already replied. Okay.
So
Okay.
let's continue with for the right pro Intissar.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's move to 4D Right Pro. Okay, so the first feature. So as you know, tables in 4D Right Pro can now be populated by data sources. Of course, opening up endless possibilities for customization. But what happens when a data source is empty? So in 4D 20R6, we have introduced the WK empty data source attribute, giving you greater control over how tables behave when their linked data source has no data. For instance, if you think displaying a given table is not relevant if there is no data to display, like for example, what we see in the screenshot, you can simply hide it with the command wp set attribute and use the new attribute wkempty data source. Okay, but this is not just about hiding a table. This new attribute allows you to precisely define how a table behaves when its data source is empty, offering 4 powerful options. Okay, so the first option is show data row, the default settings. In such case, the table will appear with its header and an empty data row. Second one, we have hide the data row, keeping the header and the footer rows, but hiding the data row itself. Hide the entire table. It's a great way to eliminate unnecessary clutter. And the last option is display a placeholder row, allowing you to provide a clear message or placeholder when data is missing. So you can check the how do I relate it to this blog post where all these options are illustrated. Okay, so and another important and timely topic, it's embedding and extracting documents within PDF A3 files using 4D Right Pro. So in our previous posts, we explored how to generate electronic invoices with this functionality. And as many of you are aware, electronic invoicing is becoming mandatory in several European countries, including France and Germany. So this makes the ability to extract embedded XML files from these PDFs not just useful, but crucial for compliance. So that's why this feature release is shipped with a dedicated component that allows you to extract embedded files from your PDF documents, making it especially useful as invoicing becomes mandatory in various countries, as we stated before. Okay, so let's see this feature in action. Okay, so in this feature release, we introduce a new component that is available for download on GitHub, and we can integrate it into our workflow through the component manager, of course. So here we are going to the repo of that component. We have the component, and you can see that there is information about the version, etc. Okay, so now let's go to the dependency file, opening that up, and choose the same approach we saw in the first demo of Mathieu. So we create a block of the dependency that is going to be referenced to this component named QPDF. Okay, now let's define additional attributes. Where am I getting the component from? I'm getting it from 4D/4DQPDF. Okay. Next, I'm going to specify the version number, or you can use the star as we saw in the previous demo to extract the last version of the component. Okay, so that's it. Save the file, close the dependency, and we are going to go back and take a look quickly at the dependency. Okay. Now it is there. except that we need to restart the application in order for the component to be downloaded and kicked into the workable mode. So we're going to go ahead, close. Okay, reopen it. Okay, you can see that it's paused for a second because it's downloading all of these components that we have referenced. So you can see it's now active and ready to go. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the component information from the Explorer. Okay, you can see it's listed. Yeah, it's listed. And it comes with one single method, which is all that you need. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the information that the component provides in the documentation. You can just read through. It's very simple. It tells you exactly what you are going to do when you call this command. So I'm going to go down to the example and copy just the code example and go back to my home. Okay. Go into my empty method, paste it. I know that my document is on the desktop. It's invoice.pdf. I'm going to place that in there. Okay, go into my system folder, to the desktop folder, and at the end, I have to tell it to use the path, the correct path. Okay, so here, all I need to do. Okay, now let's put breakpoint. And okay, breakpoint here, perfect. And all I need to do is to make a call to the component method. So here is the result of the execution. I got 3 attachments. Okay, you have all the information you need in these attachments. Perfect. Now, what we're gonna do? Okay, we go and open the invoice.pdf that is on my desktop. Okay, this is the document I uploaded, a PDF that has access to its attachments as well. Okay. So as you can see here, you will notice that we have the same exact attachments. So actually this feature give you all sorts of variety of ideas on what you can do with it. As we said before, for example, for e-invoicing, because some standards and regulations might require handling invoice data and any attached files, for example, receipts, purchase orders, or tax documents in specific ways to ensure data integrity for security scanning, etc. Okay, so that will be all for this demo.
Okay.
Okay, let's move back to the presentation and see if we have any questions.
Yes, we have one question. One question, is there any possibility of having PDF A3 attachments in the current LTS version for 2025? So the current LTS version is 4020, and the component we just showed, we just demoed, won't work with V20 with 4020 LTS. You will need a hard release, a feature release to run it, a recent feature release. Anyway, the whole electronic invoicing was implemented in various feature releases, so step by step, and the complete story is finished with R6. You may be able to use this component. I think it's in its documentation with. I think you will need for the R20R4 or R5 as a minimum. So the next LTS version that will be able to use this component will be for D21. All right, I guess we can continue because we have other big stuff to share today.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's continue with Qodly Studio for 4D. So I'm thrilled to talk about a major milestone. Qodly Studio for 4D has officially reached a beta status with the release of 4D 20R6. By beta, we mean that we consider the feature set sufficient for you to build business web applications, serious business web application, and you're now ready to extend your 4D desktop app with Qodly Pages. So, Qodly Studio is your web browser-based tool allowing you to design Qodly pages. These pages come equipped with a wide array of UI components and full CSS support. And the best part is that you can map user events such as button click or page load directly to your 4D ORDA code using Qodly sources. So you have here a quick example on screen of the kind of UI you can design with Qodly Studio for 4D, but you can do any UI you want. You are totally free of the design, the layout of your application. So what if you cannot find the perfect UI component for your needs in what Qodly Studio offers out of the box? Don't worry. Thanks to custom components, you have the complete freedom to add whatever you need, from a specific widget to advanced data visualization like charts or maps. And the best thing is that many custom components are already available on our GitHub custom component page, making it super easy to extend your apps with just a few clicks. One standout feature is also page states. This allows you to have multiple visual states for your Qodly pages, and it's incredibly simple to enable or disable these states, whether it's changing the layout based on the user click or adapting this layout dynamically using Qodly sources or user privileges. The possibilities are endless. And logging in and logging out is made easier than ever. You set up your 4D REST server with force login, as we saw in previous webinars. You design your login page, and you're all set. You know 4D license is used until the user authenticates to your application. But all of this will be better with a demo from Marie-Sophie. And thank you, Marie-Sophie, to share this demo with us today.
So, thank you, Mathieu. Welcome to this demo about Qodly Studio. For this demo, we will use an existing 4D application. It is an healthcare system, and it's an application to handle appointments between patients and doctors. So as it is an existing 4D application, we already have this 4D form to handle patients. So this is the patient's list. We can view a patient with their last and next appointment. We can also select a patient and update it like this. And thanks to the search tool, we can search for a patient. And finally, we can add a new patient. So we can create a new patient like this. So let's have a look now at the data model. So for this, I open the structure. So we have an appointment data class with a when attribute. It is a date, and a what time attribute. It is a time. And we have this people data class. Both patients and doctors are in this data class. We have the first related attribute, patient. It is a people entity. And a second related attribute, doctor. It is also a people entity. And now let's have a look at the Data Explorer. So to see the data, these are all the appointments we have in the application. And not this full name attribute. It is because we have a computed attribute. In the people entity class, we have this full name computed attribute. It returns the first name and the last name. So it's now time for us to offer new features on the web for this application. So that's why I use now Qodly Studio to create new web features for our end users. So I open now Qodly Studio thanks to the Qodly Studio menu. And this is the Qodly Studio interface. And to start, I create the first Qodly web page for the application. If you don't know how to start or how to build your first web pages, there is the templates library. Templates are already built-in pages and you can use them very easily and custom them to fit your needs. So here in the templates library, we have this healthcare section containing templates featuring health topics. So I select the first template and I drag and drop it on the canvas. And note that I can remove some component to fit my needs or customize them. So here is now the use case I'm going to play. It is displaying all the appointments in a list and a button to cancel a selected appointment. And this button will be disabled if the appointment date is in the past. And at the end, we will have an overview on custom components you can import in your Qodly application. So for this, we will use a chart to display the number of appointments for the next 3 months. But let's start now with the demo. So I remove this text component and I update the title to appointments list. And I remove now this other text component. And I need a component list to display the appointments. So for that, I use again the templates library. There is the data tables section with already styled data tables. So I choose a template and I drag and drop it on the canvas. The data table is a Qodly Studio component to display a simple list like that. And to display the appointments, I need a source. So that's why I go into the catalog in the data classes section. I select the appointment data class and I create the app source. It's an entity selection containing all the entities. And the source is there. And to display it in my data table, I drag and drop it on the component. And I can verify here the binding is properly done. So let's start now customizing the columns. So for the first column, I display the when attribute with a when header. For the second column, I display the what time attribute with a time title. And for the first column, I display the patient full name. So I use the related attribute patient and I select the full name computed attribute with a patient header. And I add a last column to display the doctor full name. So I use the doctor related attribute. So not also the type ahead for the attributes. I select the full name attributes and I put a doctor title. And now I'm going to update the width of the 2 last columns. And for the when colon, as it is a date, I can select a date format, and for the what time attribute, it's a time, so I can select a time format. I save my work, and let's test the page. So it's well done. We can see all the appointments are displayed in a smart list, and this in only a few seconds. But they are not sorted by date. So let's see how easy it is to fix that. So back to Qodly, I select the page component and open the events panel. And I select the onInit event. So it is when the page is firstly initialized. And I set up a standard action on a Qodly source. And the source is the apps entity selection. I want to order it, so I select the order action. And I put the attribute, so I order on when and on what time attributes in the ascending order. So let's test that again. So I refresh the page and the order is perfect now. So we can go to the next step. I need now to select an appointment and to display a cancel button to drop it. So we already have this button thanks to the template. So I'm going to back to Qodly now to update the label of this button. And on the data table, there is this selected element property. It is the appointment selected by the user. And I need a source to handle it. So that's why from the apps source, I create now the selected app source. It is an entity. And the initial value is the first appointment of the apps entity selection. And I drag and drop it on the data table. I check the binding is properly down. And I select now the button and open the events panel. So on the onClick event, I set up a standard action on the selected app source. And I choose the drop action. After the deletion, the apps entity selection will contain blank spaces for dropped entities. So to avoid those blank lines on my interface, I set up a second standard action on the apps entity selection. And now I select the clean action to have this selection clean from drop entities. So let's save that and run again the page. So I refresh the page. Now I select, for example, the second appointment. I click on the button. So it is dropped, and I can select again the second one and cancel this appointment. So the deletion works properly. And we can enhance all this because the cancel button should be disabled if a user selects a past appointment, because of course it makes no sense to cancel a past appointment. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that in Qodly Studio thanks to the states. So the states allow the UI to be dynamic according to the user's action. So in this states section, I create a state. I create the disable cancellation state. So we have the base page here and the state. The state is a variation of the base page. On this state, for the button, I apply another background color. I choose a red background color. and I disable this button thanks to the disabled property. And I want this state to be enabled if the selected appointment is in the past. So for this, let's go back to 4D. In the appointment entity class, we have a very simple computed attribute. Is past is a Boolean, and it returns true if the appointment is in the past. So a state can be bound to a condition. So in the condition editor, for this state, I open the condition editor and I add a condition. The condition involves a Qodly source, and the source is selected app is past attribute, and I select the is true operator. So when selected app is past is true, then the disable cancellation state is enabled. Else it's not enabled, and the user will be able to click on the cancel button. So let's test that again. I refresh the page, and now I select a past appointment. So the button is red and disabled. I can't click on it. And let's try with another past appointment. It's the same. If I select a future appointment, I can click on the button and cancel it because the button is enabled and the appointment is dropped, and so on. I can select a second one and cancel and drop the appointment. So as you can see, the state is a very powerful feature to handle a dynamic UI. Of course, this example is very simple, but be sure you can handle very complex business logic thanks to the states and thanks to the condition editor. At the beginning of the demo, I talked about displaying a chart. So it's now time to talk about custom components, because Qodly Studio offers various components out of the box, but developers can craft specific ones using React and propose them to the Qodly community. So this extends the capabilities of Qodly Studio and allow to fit specific needs. So on this GitHub repository, you will find all the available custom components. You can also develop your own custom components. And now I have selected the Apex chart. And each custom component has its documentation. And some information is provided, especially for the required data source. So we see the required source and the structure it must have. So now I can download this Apex chart component thanks to the latest link. I download it. And I can upload now it in my application thanks to the upload component icon. So I click on this icon. And for this, I just have to follow the instructions. So I select the component. I install it. So installing a custom component is very easy. And now the uploaded component is there in the custom component section with all its available charts. So to start, I remove now useless components on the canvas. And I drag and drop the area chart in the style box. And a custom component has specific properties like the title. So we can here update the title. It is updated. And if we have a look in the properties panel, we can see that this component requires a source. So that's why I create now the source here. I create the statistics source, and it is an object. It is an object because it is required by the documentation. And I bind this source on the chart by drag and drop. And on this chart, I want to display the number of appointments for the next 3 months. So for this, I have already prepared a function. So let's go back to 4D. In the appointment class, we have this app statistics function. So no need to go into details in the implementation, but this function returns an object with the number of appointments for the next 3 months. So as this function returns statistics, I want to get them each time the app's entity selection changes. So that's why I edit now the app's source. And I select the onChange event. And on this event, I set up a function call to call my app's statistics function. And the result must go in the statistics object, which is bound with the chart. And I have a last setting to do with the chart for the y-axis. The y-axis tick must be 4. And the minimum value must be 0. So let's have now a complete and final run for this page. So all seems good. When the page is initialized, the app's entity selection is built. So the onChange event is triggered and the app statistics function is called. That's why the chart already contains up-to-date data. In my appointments list, I have 10 appointments in November, 3 in December, and 5 in January. So the chart is up to date. If I select a past appointment, I can't cancel it. And if I select a future appointment in November, so for example, this one, I can cancel it. And the chart is up to date with 9 because the app's entity selection has changed. So the statistics have been refreshed. I can do that again. If I select another appointment, I cancel it. The chart is up to date to 8. And let's have a last just for the fun. And I drop it and the chart is up to date with 7. So this is the end of this demo. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, you can extend your 4D application on the web very easily with Qodly Studio because Qodly Studio offers various powerful and very easy to use features for that. So thank you for attending.
Thank you, Marie-Sophie, for this great demo. We will here take on the presentation. We are reaching the end. I want to take a moment to thank all the developers who have already starting this journey with Qodly Studio for 4D. We have several of them. So we are thrilled with the creativity and innovation we've seen so far. And don't worry, there is much more to come. We are continuously adding new features and improvement to the project, even if it's now in beta status and soon to be final. So stay tuned for more exciting updates. We had a previous question about QPDF component. Someone asking if the rest of the QPDF library commands is available as well, and the answer is that what is available in the component is what we have displayed today, what we have showed today. But of course, the source of the component is available if people want to do something else. Other question about Qodly Studio this time. So I just read the question saying that it is really fantastic to have charts in Qodly Studio. Is it possible to put a View Pro area into Qodly Studio page, as it is a Spread.js plugin? I imagine it is designed for a browser. So yes, Spread.js is designed for a browser. We are thinking of doing such a thing. We have no milestone to share about that for the moment, but for sure we are thinking of adding spreadsheet features in Qodly Studio. But for the moment, it has not started yet. But we're thinking a lot about it. So it's answered. Do we have other questions? Not yet. Oh yeah. What about multi-language support in Qodly with Xlif with a question mark? I'm really glad. I'm not sure it will be still a secret for a long time, but we have really progressed a lot with multi-language support. We are waiting a little bit for before shipping it, because we need quality assurance around it. But I think you will be impressed by what we have prepared for multi-language. Really, I am impressed by it. So I think you will be. At this moment, it won't support Xlif out of the box. It will be more based on JSON or CSVs. Why not Xlif in a second time? But you will be, I think, impressed by what we have prepared so far. Okay, lots of questions about Qodly Studio.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Any plans on AI integrations? Yes, we have plans on AI integrations. With our plans, we are interested a lot by this topic. We have already made various proof of concepts, internal proof of concepts. You saw that the tool, the product, Qodly Studio, is really modern and really ready for this kind of stuff. We have a lot of ideas to ease your work as a developer, but also to provide AI features for your end users. And for Qodly Studio, we have lots of plans, and for 4D as well. But this I prefer to keep to remain silent for the moment for AI with 4D. So we have lots of plans for AI. And just for this, if you have AI ideas, honestly, I would be, as a head of product, I would be very interested in knowing what would be your ideas. So the best place for that is to go on the feature request section of our forum and to put here your ideas, what would be nice for you, and to discuss also this with other developers, with the community. Maybe you will think of something that we haven't thought about yet. So it's really a very good moment if you have something really important for you, or a great idea. It's really a good moment to share it. I would say that there is no better moment than now to share it on the forum and to discuss that with the community in the forum. Cannot be clearer, I guess. And I forgot to activate my camera back, so you could not see my face when I said it's the best moment to share this with us in the forum. All right. No more question for the moment. We are a little bit late on schedule, so we can proceed, I guess. You can check about Qodly Studio, lots of tutorials and demos on the blog, and much more to come, but already I suggest you to go there and start to get to know the product. And now it's beta, it's not developer preview anymore. So the feature set that you have is really, really solid. Get to know the product, get to use it. It will be final in a very short time. So there's no better moment to get ready to use it when it gets final. Don't forget also to visit the documentation, developer.4d.com, developer.qodly.com about this. Okay, I don't see other questions. Maybe people have other appointments. As usual, more details can be found in the blog. All the features that you saw today with demos, everything is on the blog, much more. Okay, we always appreciate your feedback. So today we decided to give you more demos, more detailed demos than in the previous webinars. Feel free to share what's your thought about it. Should we continue, or would you like to see something else? Once again, give us your comments. And have a fantastic week ahead.
Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you in 3 months. Bye-bye.